but we'll open the public hearing to public comments. And who would like to be first? Bill?
I gather this is the opt-out,
That's what the public hearing is about, yes.
yeah.
Yes.
Maybe you just give a brief outline of how it works.
Well, it's just, instead of, the county has adopted a resolution to the effect, the host community benefit package, I believe, something to that effect, which is a not a tax, but a payment from the solar companies to the townships, town, school, and county. And through our talking with our attorney, our assessor, and other towns now, there's more and more that are opting out. I was the only one at the town board, at the county board meeting that voted against it because I wanted more time to discuss it. And they thought it had to get done, so they passed a resolution. And we're open to discussion. I mean, basically that's what it is. What opting out is going to make it a pilot program, basically, which has got to be agreed to between the developer and the town on the amount or whatever it might be, or whatever the share of the assessed value would be.
What we're opting out of is the exemption.
Exemption. The state, there's two things you can do with the state, is opting out or accept what the state is proposing, which is tax-free, assessment-free for 15 years, up to 15 years, I think. Maybe it is 15 years or up to. 15. It is 15 years. And of no assessment, I mean, they may be assessed for it, but they won't pay any taxes on it. And we feel, and our assessor, I don't know if, I know there are a few people in here that have solar panels, and I don't know if you've been assessed for them yet. You have been.
Have not.
Oh, no, somebody behind you shaking their head, yes. Okay.
But you're not in the town of Franklin.
True.
Oh, okay.
Same state law.
Yeah, same state law,
Well, I
but the
think
town assessor has.
You've had your panels a while, right?
2 years.
Which, who are you talking about?
Donnie.
Don? I've had one since '07.
So you have been assessed
Yeah,
for it, it
but
just
it's-
didn't increase your assessment,
Well,
basically.
well, the way Jim was talking is
Jim
not,
said he's never assessed any, because it was too hard to decide what is the value.
whether
Is
it's
it the
an
cost of
asset
it?
or
Is it the
a.
money you save? Is it the?
So it's only gonna increase your assessment if it increases the value of your home. So
How,
both-
in his,
In the assessor's opinion.
yes.
Right.
And that's why, I mean, this is what Jim said, he never doesn't plan on assessing residential or farm,
So therefore
Which
there would be
is-
no exemption.
which is
There was
his
no
call,
assessment.
because he is the assessor. He's the one who has control of the assessment role.
Can you repeat that again, Jeff, what you just said? He doesn't plan on what? I'm sorry.
He has not and has no plans unless, he said the one where he might add assessed value to the property is if that's their only source of electricity. They have to have it, or if they get to the commercial part where they're selling back to the grid, which any residential systems, I believe, you give them the copies of all your electric bills to know how much you've used over the past year. And then your proposed development would compare to you're not gonna, if you use $100 worth of electricity a month, they're not gonna have you put a solar farm or solar panels up to sell 200, 300, 400 watts back, or volts, or $400 worth of electricity back to the grid.
Well, actually, the way it works right now, at least for my system, is it's net metered.
It's not
So,
metered.
It's net metering, so basically, anytime you're making more power than you use in your home, it goes to the grid.
Right.
Anytime you're making less than
And you're using,
You buy from the grid.
by, for-
But they keep track, and my accountable date is March 31st.
right,
So you start, April 1st, and you go through the year, and you see where every year. I've never had enough system to know if there's anything left over, but we did put a second system on last year.
mhm,
Now, I should have enough to cover my total electric bill.
right,
I won't know until we get around to March how it works. But I'm pretty confident that if I see in February, and on your bill, it tells you exactly, I've got almost 1,000 kilowatt hours on my head
Right.
right now, because we're in the sunlight. And we don't use lights in the daytime.
right, right,
So we'll see when I get around to it, but you can bet a nickel that when it comes time that in February or March, if I have excess power, that's why they invented electric heaters.
right.
Instead of using another fuel. No, I mean,
Right,
it
no,
only
no,
makes sense.
realistically, yes,
Yeah, I mean,
because
that's-
they will not pay you squat,
My understanding is they will not pay you, they'll never
Right,
give you money.
2 or 3 kilowatts, or 2 or 3 cents per kilowatt or something, it's very, now you're shaking your head, have you been through
It's
this?
been there, yeah.
Been there and done that? Cause I know,
Usually,
they
I
buy
only
it,
had I only had $20 worth of electricity left over at the end of the year.
right, but that was at, what, 3 or 4 cents a kilowatt instead of
Instead of
8 or 10?
11.
Right, instead of
Right.
11. So they pay wholesale, they don't pay retail,
But they actually did pay you.
Yeah.
or credit.
See, I have never been in that position, so I don't know.
Okay, but that's, I mean, that's, if there's any more questions about, that,
Liz, 2 years ago, when I looked into it, what was the established acceptance by the state of New York was over 5 years, you had to show what your electric bill was, and you were allowed to put in a system 10% greater than what your accumulation over 5 years, every year you utilize. So you couldn't put in a solar farm and claim it to be residential. That's what their clause was. But you could go 10% over what your utilization was over the past 5 years average. Is how they set it up when I was looking into it.
but they limited that, so you couldn't go too big.
Yeah, you
Basically.
can't, that was the limit. Pennsylvania at that time had no cap, but New York did.
Now, this affects solar hot water systems as well as solar electric systems, from what was said at the meeting in Treadwell. That you have a solar system that's heating hot water
Right,
for your household heat. That's solar heat. My understanding, it covers solar, water, and solar electric. Now, that brings up the question, I'm aware of at least a couple of farms that have gone to solar hot water heating systems to preheat their hot water
Yep.
with pipeline washing and stuff. So you're exempting them as well.
yes.
I mean, with,
Farm and residential.
and not just farm biomass, it's
Right.
whoever uses.
Right, whatever,
Yeah,
yes.
that's what I thought.
I mean, I think that's how the state had it regulated, but we're opting out of this so we can assess, Jim says, he does not feel there is a added value to solar or even solar hot water. To say your place is already all of a sudden worth 20% more because you spent $50,000 on a solar system. Because the initial year, maybe, but after 5 years, that could be a liability as much as a asset on maintenance, depending on maintenance. But that's what he's told us, and and what, I guess, any other questions? Is that all right?
Yeah,
Is
I
that,
do.
Donnie, is that?
Yeah, I'm cool, so, go ahead.
I do have a question.
Yes.
If I would, so in essence, what you're saying is you want to remove the tax exemption, and then it's up to the opinion of the assessor, whoever it might be, at whatever time down the line, whether or not that system adds value to your property if you're have a residential hot water or solar system.
Right.
So there's no guarantee that down the line, somebody may not determine that that increases the value of your property by a certain amount, and suddenly you find an increased tax liability, unless, of course, you have a farm, in which case there's no liability.
Well, no, I mean, if residential is assessed, it would take the farm and residential out of the
But the law, the change you're making,
Yeah.
in essence, takes them out of this exemption.
No, it does
Leaves
not.
it up to.
no, it does not. No, it
Didn't
does
you just
not.
say that?
He said, now
That's-
Jim,
Isn't what this law that we're doing
The
is,
law does not take the farm or residence out.
but that law that I read doesn't differentiate between residential and
And
commercial.
I agree, but
So it does, if that law is passed as it stands, then if I put in a solar heating
yeah,
system.
you could be assessed down the
You
road.
decide at some point, or the new assessor
New
decides,
assessor, yes.
that suddenly my tax liability will increase, however they determine the value of
Well, it'd be
that
a
system.
pilot program with residents too, not just, I mean, it was in lieu of a pilot program for not just commercial solar farms. If I'm reading it right, that it would cover any assessed value would be determined by a pilot program. Is that right, Donnie? Because that's how it's overlooked.
Let's start again. Are we talking about local law number 2?
Yes,
This is the law we're talking
right,
about?
the opting out law.
And it doesn't say, it says no exemption from taxation.
That's
Right.
it.
That's what you're, okay.
So that would be
So that
applicable
means
to
you
anyone,
can be taxed,
commercial,
right?
residential, farmers.
Yes.
Yes, you can be
You
taxed,
can be
yes.
taxed. Okay.
But at this time, our assessor does not tax farms
Right.
or
But once
residents.
it's in the law, that can change, that's the point
Yes,
I'm
it could,
trying to
yes,
make.
it could.
It's at that point, it's not, you have no legal recourse if somebody decides down the line.
There will still be a pilot program, am I right on that? That's how you take care of there's nothing in there about a pilot program?
Not in law
Not in the
number
local
2.
law?
Not in the law that you want to pass, this merely removes the exemption. It doesn't,
From,
from property tax, it does not add, it does not put a pilot program in place. It just removes the exemption. It's very simple. It's a one word, basically a one sentence law.
opting out.
I've got a copy. Jeff, just, I'm sure you've read it. Okay, yeah. I mean, it's,
Yeah, that's exactly, you're assuring us that.
Yeah, it sounds too gray. I mean, it's based on the assessor then. If he wants to, he or she, if they want to assess residential or farmers. So there's really no guarantee in a sense
But we're
that
opening
they're
ourselves
gonna
up.
be a little biased in their assessment.
Right,
Well,
right.
but
I mean,
unless
sure, it would
it-
protect
unless it's a
residential.
huge project, it's not gonna be a very large fraction of your property value.
But it doesn't,
But it could.
That's one of the things that Jim brought up.
the whole point is
How
to
can you-
encourage.
An ordinary sized project is gonna be so small in relation to the value of the property that it doesn't matter.
Yes, sir.
I don't quite understand this. She said that the assessor is not assessing solar panel systems for houses or farms and doesn't intend to. Then why are you getting rid of the exemption? How does the town benefit?
Well, the town is gonna benefit if there is a solar farm.
Commercial.
Commercial
Commercial,
farm, put in,
yes.
yes.
Why don't you just exempt that then?
New York State law-
New York State law-
stand.
New York State law doesn't differentiate.
Well, right,
Why
Can
don't
they
we-
differentiate between income, making a profit on the solar compared to farmers using it just for their farm use and residential homeowners using it for their own heating of their homes, hot water, whatever? But if someone is making a profit and an income on it, can they differentiate that way?
You'd have to change the state law.
I would hope not, because anybody with a solar system, like not Donnie, what's your name, sir?
Anderson.
Anderson, Mr. Anderson. Mr. Anderson, or? Yeah.
Call him Stu.
Stu? Okay, Stu. No, he said, he made $20 last year on us. All of a sudden, he gets assessed because he made a profit off of
So Jeff,
it. Yes, Donnie?
to help clarify, you're proposing putting a law into place. What exactly is the gain that the town expects from this, or what is the threat that you're avoiding by putting this law? What is your thinking? What are you trying to do?
One of the biggest threats is the county's proposed resolution, or the resolution they did pass. The lawyer said she was actually against the opting out law until she discussed it with our assessor and found out about the county resolution to that effect of, changing that. And she said, you're just looking at a lawsuit nightmare. Because anybody, these solar companies are gonna come after the towns that stay in with a county resolution. So she said at this time, that the good part about this is, or a plus, I guess, I can't say the good part. A plus is, you can't, if you go into the county into the state program, you can't opt out later. But it does say in the law that if you opt out, you can always go back the other way. It's a one-way street on this. If you don't opt out now, you're in it, doesn't matter what happens. But if you opt out now, you can, reverse the law and opt back in at any time. That's about the only clear-cut faction of the state resolution, or state, regs on the taxes. There is one section that says you can opt back in any time. But it doesn't say you can opt out anytime.
But as we go forward now, have any proposals come before the planning board or anything for the town of Franklin considering any of these?
Nothing to any of the boards. There have been landowners talked to, or they've talked to the, solar people some, I guess. And one is Dave. He's had, this was quite a while ago too, I understand. But, you tell him, what did you hear from him? What did you?
Oh, I just replied to their request, and I didn't like their terms, and so I'm not gonna do it. And I haven't heard any more from them.
Right. I understand, any of these leases are lease company favorable, and that's why everybody recommends get a lawyer that has experience to, write your lease.
So if you didn't opt out right now, can you opt out next month or next year? When is the opt-out window closed if you didn't want to do something?
I'm not sure about that.
As I understand it, you have to opt out before the project gets started because it's not retroactive.
Right, not it is grandfathered, right?
Well, any project that started
Right,
before you change the law.
Right, would be grandfathered, so then they would, the initial project could happen.
But this law seems to be a solution in search of a problem because you want to hold on to the property taxes for the commercial where we don't have any commercial projects on the horizon. Whereas you might well be taking away some exemption from some of the residential systems which we've had built in Franklin in the past and hopefully will continue to have them built in the future. So you could take this law and put it in a file folder and put it in the file and pull it out whenever you hear the commercial project.
Once they have filed,
When somebody comes to the board, you'd know though. Don't they have to come to a planning board before, isn't there a process?
I don't know if there's a planning board, I have to come to the.
For zoning or something?
I think probably the code enforcement officer probably.
Gotta come to somebody.
Because we've had these wind projects talked about both for Franklin and Walton. Nothing ever came of those. Just because people start talking about leases doesn't mean there's anything down the road. And if it's sitting in the file.
Through the, there used to be REA, now it's Delaware County Electric Co-op. Back a couple months ago, they had 16 different solar farm, talk of solar farms. And at that time, they could utilize possibly 3 of them because they've got to be more of a start of the national, or not a national grid. National grid works best, but, power lines that come out to the last 10 houses will never sustain the power they're putting on the
Right, they don't have the capacity to move the power.
to move the power.
To whatever substation.
To whatever substation or wherever they've got to put it to. So, yes.
I think you might find the numbers more dramatic than the last 10 houses. You're familiar
Right.
with the town yard, the town yard at the town of Otiga?
Right.
Where the Marcy South power line staging area was?
Mhm.
And you're familiar with the lumber mill that's at the corner of Secor Road? The county wanted to rent the entire 14-acre flat spot at the Otigo Town Sheds for a solar farm. But they couldn't tie it in at the sawmill. Now, if you don't have enough wires at a sawmill, you don't have enough wires anywhere,
There's a lot of
unless you've got
power.
a substation handy.
A lot of power.
Yeah.
Right.
14 acres of panels makes a lot of power, and I don't think there are very many places in the town of Franklin that can handle it.
Well, they
I mean,
tried,
this area is fed by the substation in Otsego,
Otsego.
right.
and I don't know where the break is, but it's,
Well, I know originally, when you were talking wind turbines and stuff, there was one, there is one. I'm gonna put was, because I didn't receive my rent payment this month, or this year. And that, you know, they wanted it up by the power lines that are up in Merrickville, you know, because they would build a station and then feed it onto that. And that's where the one test tower is right up there. But, you know, there's gotta be some way to get rid of the power, there's no doubt. And that's what's been an oversight, I think. You know, Franklin, realistically, we've got 3 to 4, at least 3 high voltage power lines. If not 4, because there's one on White Hill, which is right on the edge of the town of Franklin. There's 2 in Merrickville, and then Marcy. If, you know, if any town
that's a big
is,
step up.
pardon?
That's a big step up.
Oh, there is a big, there's no doubt, but I think there also might be required to take it because of the green effect. I'm not sure how, I don't know how they do it, but I've understood that, you know, to go onto a common line is gonna be, you know, not feasible unless somebody spends a lot of money to upgrade.
Yeah, I think the implication is that it's not just the cost of the solar farm, it's the infrastructure of the substation, lines, whatever it takes to get it to some
To
sort
get
of
it.
grid.
Right.
And that is substantial, so.
Yep.
Well,
Okay. Sure, we haven't got anything clear, because I'm confused. Anybody else? Yeah.
so basically, just to go back, the main concern is the potential for commercial, large-scale commercial, and even technically 20-acre solar farm is really a small-scale electric generation compared to any power plant you'll ever see.
Right.
It's really small, but it is what they're hoping to do in multiple numbers to help the grid around various parts of the country. So your main concern is that if you didn't tax them, you would be treating one industry differently from another industry. You'd be,
A commercial industry would, you know,
okay, so that's a commercial industry, so it wouldn't be fair if you didn't tax it.
right.
Okay. Let me ask you a question. I see at least 5 landowners out there, rather large landowners, that probably several of them are agricultural. Are most of your farms commercial farms? Your commercial, your farm that you used to have, you probably.
Right. Oh, you
your
still
son
got
runs
it. You still
Okay.
got it, yeah.
They're all commercial farms, and I believe that Mr. Bruno probably rents his land to a commercial farm.
Mhm.
So now you're talking an agricultural industry. You are treating that agricultural industry different in the town, because you guys get a tax exemption that I don't get. So I mean, I don't see that the logic of not taxing a commercial energy producing farm is different from taxing agricultural that provides
Well,
food for us.
we do get taxed, anyway, we get an exemption, but not
Yes, you do.
100% exemption, if I'm,
Yes, the
I
exemption
do
for
pay
New York
taxes.
State goes from $1,000 per acre for the highest exemption down to $53 for the lowest, depending on the quality of the land
depends
and
on
the
the
country.
land, right.
But last I looked, my son is being taxed at, I think it's $2,500 an acre for, you know, vacant land, open land, and whatever. So that's a significant tax break
But
that you
but
get.
you're right on that.
Yes.
Who set those rates?
This is, I think, the USDA.
I think it's probably
The
New York
federal.
State.
Yeah, I'd say state.
I think it's probably state
Okay.
that sets that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's what they've set, and that's what Jim is held to, I guess, is what you can say.
Right, right.
So, I mean, that's
But
something that's actually out of our control, I guess.
But it's
now.
actually, what I'm saying is, it's public policy.
Right,
Starting from the USDA Farm Bill right on down through, that the United States for a long time has wanted relatively inexpensive food. Compared to the rest of the world, the amount of my paycheck when I was working was a lot less than in some countries.
right.
Energy was the other thing, is that, you know, when you look at the energy producing fossil fuel industry, there's been a lot of incentives because the United States wants low-cost fuel because it stimulates the economy, stimulates stuff. So we're already doing that. Electricity generation is energy, which could take and stimulate the economy, stimulate jobs, Solar industry, I mean, you're not gonna have two guys in a pickup truck building a 20-acre solar farm
Right,
or a 50-acre solar farm.
right.
So I'm just saying, it seems to me that it's inconsistent that we can exempt certain other industries, but suddenly, you know, we have an any energy industry, that we think it's very important that we tax them, when it really could help the economy if they had the incentive not to be taxed, like agriculture and like fossil fuels.
One other addition to that is one of the issues with bringing industry to New York State as a whole, and this part of New York State in particular, is the high cost of electricity. And if you add to the costs of the solar farms, should they bring them in, should there be sufficient infrastructure for them to actually be part of the power grid, if they're not taxed, then perhaps the rates that they charge, and therefore the rates that we pay, will be lower and will help to bring industry into the area. If they are taxed, then they're gonna pass that tax burden on to the ratepayers. It will increase the cost of energy. So if you look at it from this large scale that we want to encourage development
Right.
in this area, one of the things you need to encourage development is low-cost energy. The Northeast and New York State has high-cost energy, particularly electrical energy. Perhaps, just perhaps, encouraging renewable energy generation might bring that down and have an effect on the larger economy that would be positive.
Renewable energy is expensive energy.
Is anybody aware of what's happened within the last 3 weeks or so with regard to subsidies and the direction that the governor wants to go in? Nuclear energy. That's where a large part of the subsidies are going now. And one thing you can bet the farm on, at least what I've been told, is that everybody's rates will go up because of subsidies of nuclear energy. Again, as I understand, I'm not an engineer, I'm not an electrical engineer, I'm a veterinarian, but as I understand, the problem with the grid situation has prompted the development or the pushing for nuclear forms of energy, which is going to be an interesting argument. And further, the wind and the solar are not dependable. And that's why they're looking to nuclear. When it's not windy, there's no, electricity generated. Can't store it now. Maybe there will be in the future. Solar, similarly. And that's why the governor says we have to do more with nuclear, which is kind of causing a crashing of interests and issues.
But that doesn't